So we've got the New Jersey gubernatorial primaries. Those elections are going to be on June 10th, so that's a stone throw away. And, there's more news. Never tired of the news. One of the biggest things that just happened that could impact the race is Elon Musk has apparently left Doge.
No. I won't hear it. Well, not on the Loud and Drunk podcast, Dan. We can do that on our own time.
Thank you. I thought this was our own time. So the interesting thing about this, in my opinion, to tie it into the New Jersey gubernatorial election, is that Trump is a part of the playbook for the Democrats. He always will be. As long as he's in politics, they'll always use him. But Elon Musk has been a very popular target as well, particularly for the front runner for the Democrats, Mikie Sherrill. So, Justin, we've did this podcast before.
Yes.
And now we have a Pedro because Moses, I don't think, is breathing right now.
Hola.
Yet he will rise again.
But I figure what we can do is, because there's a lot to unpack with Trump and Musk, but then we can tie it into the New Jersey gubernatorial election. So what do you think so far with all this news?
So, I mean, the whole thing really, ever since Trump's first bout in office is like, so like, I said this to you earlier. I think politics have gotten lazy because it's either you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, and that's all you're really. There's no platform anymore. That's the platform. And with Elon, who, like, I've never liked the guy since well before any political affiliation.
But he made the Cybertruck. We'll circle back.
God bless him. Like, he's just I can't say that. He's bombastic. I don't know what he is. He's like a caricature. And it's just so insane. And he's an easy target. And yeah, now he is or is not away from distancing from Donald Trump or Donald Trump distancing from Elon. He's definitely been less
distances from Donald Trump.
Yeah, they've definitely kind of pulled him out of the limelight a bit recently. But I mean, what does it really mean? Like, I don't know if he is actually disappearing or not now.
Pedro, when Trump says that Elon isn't really leaving, what do you think about in terms of, you don't even have to tie this into the race. What is that?
And I won't. And I won't. I think that Elon Musk is the greatest billionaire playboy who's ever existed. At least he wants to be. He really wants. I was just watching the movie Moonraker last night. One of the most iconic of the James Bond movies.
It is.
And I feel like I was watching it and I was like, I hate that Elon Musk is ruining this for me right now. Because just like the character is like who he wants to be. So I'm sorry that I had to go off on that little tangent right there. Fine. It really did upset me. I love the movie Moonraker. So when Donald Trump says that he's not really leaving, this is just classic, Donald Trump. I mean, I made the joke before, but no one, leaves Donald Trump. He leaves you. He gets to decide when you leave because of the implication, Dan. Because of the implication. So I think that Elon Musk, trying to, as best he can, and like I view both of these people, both Donald Trump and Elon Musk, as being like people who kind of like fell backwards into success, partially because like they were gifted huge amounts of money, and it's pretty hard to fuck up when somebody gives you $1 billion. Like, somebody gave me $1 billion, I'll probably still be a billionaire in 10 years. It doesn't matter what stupid mistakes I make or the hookers that I bang or whatever, whatever casinos fail or the failed, truck companies that I build. I think that you want to say something because I don't want to steal it from you.
It just hit me. And I forgot, like, this is maybe the better part of a decade ago now, but like the way he ingratiated himself with all these like popular people with the boring gun, that flamethrower thing that he just gave out to all the celebrities.
And we all just like forget about these things. In other words, what we're dealing with is a set of people who have failed miraculously And I mean that both in that the failure itself was miraculous, and yet also in the antithesis version where they just like somehow succeeded via failure, a thing that we ourselves cannot do with regular people.
Despite our efforts.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how much I try to fail upwards, it just seems to go in one direction for me. So I think that when Trump is like, no, he's not leaving, he's just being classic Trump, which is that like, I don't fail, nobody leaves me, I'm always winning, and Elon just doesn't know what he's saying, or that he just didn't mean it that way, or something along these lines. And I think that Elon Musk, and as much as I don't like the man as a person, from what I know of him, obviously from just like mainstream media, I do think that he probably is I don't think he's as good of a marketer as Trump is, but I think that he's more like aware of the consequences that are involved. Also, he's younger than Trump, so there are more consequences.
I think Trump gets to just let a lot of that just roll off his back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and that's just like the life that he lives.
Yeah.
Whereas Elon Musk has got like a big plan for himself, and again, Drax from from Moonraker. He's got a big plan for himself. He's going to take over the moon one day or something like that. I guess it's Mars for him, but I think that he's like trying to gracefully exit and not make Trump into an enemy, because when you're working in that like class of people, and like I always bring things back to like socioeconomic bullshit, but it's like when you choose to become a billionaire or a president or a high level politician, you've just decided that what matters more to you is being in that Shark Tank than having genuine friends. And so that's what an Elon Musk is. And so he's like looking at this in the framework of like, how do I kind of salvage this bullshit friendship that was never real for me?
Well, it's also, he's got to preserve, potential government contracts
what
for
I mean.
Starlink, potentially Tesla.
For him, it's all about money and power.
Yeah.
So I was giving it. So you're right. 100% I agree with you. He was basically, everything that he does is just about money and power. And all of this is just a means to an end. And I'm just being long-winded about it. But yeah, I think that Trump is basically, when he says, he's not really leaving, I think that that's just what we're supposed to believe. And because I support our president, because I'm an American, I choose to believe that.
So what I find interesting about this story is that, so off mic, we were talking about this, and I'm like, hey, well, yeah, we'll talk about this on the podcast. And then it was sort of like, well, what does Mikie Sherrill do now? Because that's been like the absolute spine of her attack ads and her rhetoric is that, like, for Newark Airport, she said, this is what happens when you doge the government, specifically going after Elon and Trump. And now you could have run into a situation where like Elon is stepping down from Doge, and like, what do you do now with your rhetoric, and what do you do with your attack ads now? You just kind of go after Trump. But now that Trump has kind of like inched the door still open for her to come like, oh, well, Donald Trump even said he's not leaving. It may not impact there as I originally thought, because now there's that little bit of wiggle room.
It's interesting because, obviously he's a walking meme.
Yeah.
He truly is. Like, any photo of him is just an instant meme because he's so bombastic.
Yeah.
He has to dial everything up to 11 and whatever. And like I said, like, he's definitely been intentionally or not, maybe it's my own purview on the whole situation, but it hasn't been really in the news too much. Very light. I mean, obviously, there's a million other weird things happening in the world.
It's hard
right
to be
now.
in the news when Donald Trump is your president. God forbid you're in the news. You're about to get deported, sir.
I think Pedro made a very good point. Like, I think Elon he's not, I don't think he's boy genius, but he's not an idiot.
Yeah.
He's got the capital, and he knows how to gain influence.
Yeah.
And has been doing that for years, working through all the celebrities he can get his hands on and influence.
He's smart, just really quick to interject.
Yeah.
He's smart in the way that he needs to be for the career path that he chose, but he's not the kind of smart that he depicts himself as. He wants to pretend like he's a scientist and he's like some sort of intelligent person. No, he's a good business person, though. I'll give him that.
He's a very good business
It doesn't matter if his businesses fail, because that's not the kind of business that he's running.
Right. Elon didn't invent Tesla. He bought Tesla.
Exactly. And that's what makes him smart. I hate to admit it, but that's what makes him smart. He's a crook. He's like the best crook, just like Donald Trump.
But that also brings, because I brought up Newark Airport.
Yeah,
I just flew. It's a still a huge story, particularly in the New Jersey gubernatorial race. Mikie Sherrill said, like, oh, you know, what was it that she said exactly? Like, she brought up the point during the debate where it's just like, oh, I think it was Duffy, who is the transportation secretary.
I believe you're correct.
Wouldn't even let like his wife or something like that, or his kid or whatever, fly out of Newark. And it becomes a massive issue out of this because now everyone's kind of like trying to figure out, well, what do we do to fix this problem? And Mikie Sherrill in that situation is like, oh, well, you know, this is, as I said before, this is what happens when you DOGE the government. The issue, though, is the problem with air traffic controllers and the shortage preceded the DOGE stuff. So you're kind of like, you know, kind of missing what the actual problem was if you're just going to blame it on Trump and Elon.
That's been a problem for a very long time.
I completely agree with this, which is why I do support Donald Trump and Elon Musk's decision that we should really investigate time travel to go back and kill Jimmy Carter. Because if we just did that, a lot of these problems go away. I'm just saying, we're always looking forward. We're always looking forward. Why don't we look backwards? Let's look backwards sometimes. If we just did that, Dan.
You know what? Yeah, if Elon wants to prove his worth, where's that time machine?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to Mars. I'm trying to go to the past, brother.
What do you guys think? I just flew out of there. I had to sit in the runway for an hour.
How was that? Tell me about it legitimately. You gave me like a glimpse of it. You were bored. You watched something on your phone.
Oh no, I didn't watch anything. I thought we were going to take off, like, you know, within a half hour or something.
Wow. For you to say that you were such an optimist while sitting on the runway at Newark Airport is just blowing me away.
Well, also because I flew through Allegiant, so I was able to get on the plane like pretty quick. Because they do that for like veterans and all that stuff. So I'm just sitting there yeah. So I just thought I was gonna, you know, now I don't know because I'm usually like the last person on the plane. But I'm like, oh, we should be leaving soon because that's what happens when I get on planes.
I love that like you serving your country for like, not to harp on it rather, but like for you doing 4 years, what happened is that instead of waiting in the actual terminal for an hour, you got to wait on a plane for an hour, which is so much worse. So, but you felt like you were winning in the end?
No, I did not.
They take roll call before they take Dan the Legend.
So what ended up happening was that we just sat there on the runway for an hour, and I was like listening to an entire podcast. I was Dave Smith's part of the problem. I'll shill for his podcast because, you know.
Fair play.
Classical liberals and libertarians got to stick together. And I knew there was a problem when I'm like, this episode is almost over, and we have not even begun to, like, you know, rev up the engines to start going.
No.
So, and I know that is there's a big problem with that just because they're trying to, like, you know, correct for the amount of planes that are in the air at the time. I know that there's a manpower shortage in terms of, you know, air traffic controllers and all that.
All the logistics aside, it really just comes down, my understanding. I'm certainly not going to pretend to have any, like, you know, knowledge beyond reading a few news articles about it. But it's that it's a shortage of people to actually fucking look at the shit combined with antiquated technology. But the two things go together.
Yeah.
You know, they're like closely related to each other.
Also,
it's the government not paying for things.
Yeah.
Another point too is it takes years for these people to get qualified to actually do that job. So it's not a problem that's gonna be fixed tomorrow, folks.
Yeah.
During this since this has really been come to light, but as I said, it's an old problem. It's been happening for a while. I've had friends that flew down to Florida, supposed to fly back into Newark. Their flight was canceled. Next flight they could get was 3 days later.
Jeez.
They had to rent a car, drive to the Panhandle to another airport where they could get a flight into Newark that miraculously didn't get canceled. My wife flew down to see her mom from Newark. No problem leaving, coming back. They had to do that, like, circling the airport thing for a while, like over an hour, I believe.
Yeah.
Just because they don't have the people to manage And there's also another problem too with Newark. I think they have one of their major runways is down too.
No.
Yeah.
But that's just
it's a heavily used airport.
Yeah.
I think they've cleared that up fairly recently,
It's either just got rectified or is about to be rectified. I don't know what the exact problem was, but it had some sort of construction.
I just have to say that like internally I did laugh a little bit when we were discussing like the government's actions and thinking of the word rectified.
Yeah.
Because I know that none of us agree with that, but we're gonna toss that word around.
Toss it around. I don't believe in anything.
It was covered with duct tape.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's painter's tape in. It's actually more expensive. So,
well, like Newark is a massive. I mean, like it's not like Atlanta level hub, but it is a massive airport. A lot of people go there to avoid the New York airport.
Yes.
because there's like 3 airports that serve basically like what we would call Manhattan.
Yeah. You have LaGuardia, JFK, and you have Newark. And Newark is
the best of them.
And it's also the one that's the easiest to get to.
Yeah.
Like my sisters
Certainly
dropped me
for
off
us,
at that
that's
airport,
true.
and I was shocked of how like I'm used to like once you get past a certain point on the Parkway or Turnpike, like you're not really gonna move. And like we got there with plenty of time, so that was the one thing that did go right in terms of that trip, at least flying out of Newark. But yeah, that just reminded me like the whole Elon thing and the Newark thing just brought me to Mikie Sherrill. She's as I said before, she's the favorite to win in this election, or at least in terms for the Democrats and to get the nomination. And the comment that I had about her, Justin, was that she just seems so remarkably unremarkable.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There's nothing about her that's interesting or special in any real way.
Yeah, it's just like I'm listening to her talk, and she's
no comedian.
She's no comedian. We'll get to Mr. Bramnick.
I'm just chuckling. You can keep that, Dan.
We'll get to Mr. Bramnick in a minute. But like anytime that she had something to say, and I'm trying to pay attention to what she has to say because this could be the actual Democrat nominee, and I want to know what the hell that she actually like. What is her platform? What is she gonna like? How is she going to present herself to the voter? And every time she says something, I know you're gonna. I know what you're gonna say.
You heard me inhale. I know that you're listening to the microphones. I understand that. I'll keep it to myself.
But even when she was talking, it didn't seem like she knew what she was gonna say. She didn't even know what her talking point was. And it just made me think, like, the 4 other guys that are on stage, how bad are you? Like, you can't top, like, Raz Baraka is a really good public speaker. He's probably the best public speaker on that stage. And you're losing to her?
Question.
Yes.
So she was, I want to go back to what you were saying. So she was kind of platforming a bit on like, Donald Trump is bad, Elon Musk is bad. Now that Elon Musk is like kind of out of that, what does she talk about?
Yeah.
Well, then I can be your campaign manager right now because you just do exactly what Donald Trump would do. And she just turns around. As soon as Elon Musk walks away, you look right into the fucking goddamn camera and you go, why would this man fire someone who was trying to fix the airports of New Jersey? And who is supporting this man that would fire somebody who was so effective as Elon Musk, someone who had initiated DOGE, who was trying to clean up the airports, and now that he finally saw that Donald Trump and the people that support him, that they saw that this was working, that we finally got our airports working again, and he fires him, and you know what just happened? Now we can't land planes anymore.
You can't do that. She already said this.
Dan,
is why
I
we
just
can't land
did
planes.
it. And I am running for office, by the way, so...
Pedro.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to run with that name. It's going to get me killed.
Dude, there's a person running for governor named Raz Baraka.
And I'm waiting, and as soon as he gets taken out, I'm the next guy in line. Because that bitch ain't going to win.
But yeah, that was my overall take of Mikie Sherrill. It seems like she's just trying to be as milquetoast while trying to like leave breadcrumbs for the more left-wing side of the Democrats. That way she doesn't lose her lead. Like she can play it safe in the race
She's
right now.
intentionally playing it very, very safe.
Yeah.
Very safe. Like she's like Roz, obviously he's doing the traditional kind of stunts that you do.
Yeah.
And like in personal experience, I know some people that are, you know, they're trying they're the good people, Democrats, if you will.
Yeah.
They're big hearts. They care a lot. I wonder what that's like. But like a lot of them are talking about Roz a lot, and I think part of his, first of all, you are very right. He does communicate very well, and I think a lot of people are attracted to that. But especially in this state, good communicators don't necessarily mean good leaders.
I mean, sure.
And a lot of people look at Newark through a certain lens. And
It's called the lens of reality.
or the opposite. But yeah, so like I've heard a lot of people talk about him. I don't particularly like him very much, but
I think that
there is something about him that gets through to people.
to kind of go back to what you were just saying, where it's like that she's milquetoast or this or that or whatever, I kind of put all politicians in this lot, and now that we're honing in on the Democratic primary and what have you. But it's true for everybody, and I know that I quote "It's Always Sunny" a lot because it is our best measure in this country at this point in time, and it's so sad, but it's always sunny. And the idea of I'm playing both sides.
So I always come out on top.
So I always come out on top. And somebody looks you right in the eye and goes, well, you shouldn't say that out loud. You don't need to do it right on the surface.
Yeah.
Don't play both sides right on the surface. And I go, no, it's going to work out fine because I'm playing both sides. And I think that that's what all of these politicians do for the most part. So this might be like an egregious example.
Yeah.
And I make it a point to not listen to what these people have to say, which probably gives me the least amount of voice at this table because I know that you guys do actually like put forth an effort to be knowledgeable, and I have no interest.
I am hanging on by a thread.
That's more than I got.
My apathy is clawing to the surface.
I pay attention to this not because I'm particularly interested in any party or candidate.
No, you're just mentally ill.
I just like numbers. I just like numbers.
I said it with love.
And then also, I have no dog in the fight, so I can be as objective as I fucking want to be. So that was actually something I was going to bring up since we're talking about Ras Baraka. One of the bigger issues that was brought up in this final Democrat debate, and it's been brought up in plenty of other debates. They've talked about it in the GOP debates as well. Is that apparently the schools in New Jersey are segregated. And so,
In what way? Because I've heard you mention this. Like we were having a conversation. I just want to know how that's the case. I don't disagree, but I want to understand.
well, because what I was talking about with Justin on the way up here is that the Northeast is segregated. So you have certain towns that are more heavily white, and some towns will be
I
more
agree
heavily
with that
black.
completely. That's obvious.
Yeah.
It's beyond that. It's wordplay.
Yeah.
But the problem is one, we're using that
Completely
word.
agree.
It's a loaded term because when you say segregated, it implies that the government is behind it.
Yes.
And I would say it's more socioeconomic than anything else.
And just to elucidate that a
Yeah.
little bit, to use a big fancy word for something where I'm about to break it down. But segregation, yes, I agree with you, and I do think that's because that's where I got hung up with that right there.
Yeah.
Where
It's
like
purposeful.
when we say segregated, I immediately think of like literal legal segregation
Absolutely.
as existed when my mom was born, and obviously for all the times going back to that, straight back to slavery, where it was like forceful segregation. You're not allowed to go to a class with somebody who the government decided was a different color from you or a different race. Let's put it that way. So this is not that. This is instead that it's segregation based off of socioeconomics. It has to be.
Or choice, because there is some level of choice. So that when money is not a factor, you can choose where you want to live.
Yeah. So it's a different type of segregation, and we have, and in my mind, because of the legal use of the word segregation, it has that connotation to it.
Yeah.
In other words, we don't have legal connotation, or we don't have a legal segregation. We instead
It's
have
wordplay.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
I just wanted to break that down.
Absolutely. And it's important because a lot of people need to realize that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being brought up because there's been I think it was 2018. There's been an ongoing legal dispute where I forget what the actual name of the group was.
It's so
but
far long ago, I can't remember.
Yeah. But they sued essentially New Jersey for having segregated schools, and that battle is still going back and forth. But then Ras Baraka said something because it can be really easily dissected what the Republicans want to do. They want to do school vouchers, and they want to do school choice.
Trying to trim the fat, Dan. We're gonna get a chainsaw in there. And we're gonna just like make it work a lot better.
And effectively, what the Democrats want to do is busing, which is just like we're going to just move kids around from like school to school to make it more diverse. And I thought it was so interesting.
I love the idea of forced integration.
Yeah.
It's really like, you remember that fucking, I know that you guys do, that South Park episode? It's like at the camp of intolerance. Intolerance will not be tolerated.
That was that's the best South Park episode.
Yeah, it really
ever.
is. Yeah. But it's like that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt.
One I've actually seen. So
Yeah.
There you go. I haven't seen a lot, but that one always stuck out with me.
So the thing that stuck in my craw, to use the old verbiage that has been used on this podcast before.
Right back to 1860. Talk to me about segregation, Dad.
So Ras Baraka, when he was talking about segregation in schools, he mentioned he actually kind of took a swipe at Tom's River, which is an area that we are all very familiar
quite
with.
familiar with.
I was the second blackest person there, which is shocking because you guys can see me on the camera.
And he's effectively what he said, because I don't want to straw man it, but I don't quite remember exactly like the exact quote, where it's just like, well, if Tom's River doesn't want to have their school budget cut, then they should just actually spend the money that we give them, and then also make their schools more diverse. And I had already looked.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
I understand, but I also looked at some of the data, and I also want to steel man this point too. Tom's River is a very white area in Ocean County,
Yes.
New Jersey. So for the most part, there are the high schools, and a lot of the other schools are predominantly white, like 75%, 64%. But the elementary school, Walnut Street, that you'll remember, I'll remember, it has a plurality of Hispanic children, 47%. So by Ras Baraka's own freaking mindset of trying to be more inclusive and diverse and all that stuff, that is effectively, through plurality, a Hispanic, Latina school.
I'm going to try and get 3 points out before I boil over. The first one is that I just so deeply disagree with this idea of trying to. I think that when politicians talk about this, and people who back those politicians, when they talk about these thoughts of like, oh, look at how this school's disenfranchised, they don't have enough money, and it's all black people there, so that means that the government is putting black people into the poorest school. No. That's not what it is. It's a socioeconomic issue where there are certain segments of society that have absolutely been left behind, and they don't have to be just racially oriented, and I don't think that race is really a thing. Color of your skin is a thing. That's true. Your ethnic background, that's a thing for sure. The amount of money that your parents made, that's a thing. Your race is a made-up thing. It doesn't really exist. How many people think they're Italian or German in this fucking state? And they have no fucking idea what they actually are. They find out 20 years later, and they're like,
Hey, yo,
and we think nothing of it. It's a completely made-up thing. The reality of it is that some people are left behind. And I'm not even saying that it's somebody's fault, because that's its own conversation.
That's a whole,
Yeah, but in other words, to just break this down and say that in some way the government is forcing this to happen, that's completely disingenuous in every way, shape, and form. I forgot my third point, but I will do the Hispanic one. I really, as somebody who is so-called Hispanic, I really take gripe with this. And I do know what is implied with it, that you in some way have Spanish heritage? So in some way, I'm related to what? The country of Spain? Or could it be that maybe I'm like a white person who's also from Mexico? Am I Hispanic now? Or maybe I'm from Hispaniola, but I immigrated there, or my grandparents immigrated there. What does it take to be Hispanic? It's a made-up fucking term. And I love to dive into that, because when you are actually Spanish, and I learned this from my father, who was an actual Spanish immigrant to this country from Colombia, and when you hear Hispanic in any country other than this one, people are like, no, I'm not from Hispaniola.
Right.
I'm black. I'm white.
Yeah.
I'm mestizo, meaning a mix between all of the things. I'm part native. I'm all of these other things. It's all made up.
Yeah.
And the gist of what I'm saying is that all of this is done to alleviate either the guilt of regular people, or it's a politician playing on that guilt.
Well, it's
And when I
also-
talk about guilt, I'm usually talking about white guilt.
I think there's the measure of government regulation behind it. Like you have to put these kids in these boxes. So they're white, they're Hispanic, they're black, they're Asian,
And that's
they're
wrong.
this.
Yeah. That's exactly my gripe. I think that's, and I'm not just thinking that, we're not changing the world in this fucking loud and drunk podcast, but that's something that regular people, the government's going to do that bullshit, And yes, I absolutely know that we identify ourselves in certain ways. I take a lot of pride in the part of me that is black, the part of me that is Spanish, the part of me that is all of these other mix of things. You guys got your own things. I know you're mostly white, but still, all of these things, all of these things, very for you. Yeah. Dan, I know you got a little hood in you. And there's nothing wrong with those things. It's that when the government applies these things to you, and then not only do they apply them, but by applying it, they then invariably also force it upon you. And it allows them then to ignore the real problem, which is that there's schools that are not helping children. Because why the fuck do we have schools if they're not helping kids?
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't matter what, they're all Americans. They're all Americans just like us, and they're kids, so we can't even like judge them in some sort of a fucking racist way where it's like, well, you know, they're like this. No, they're just kids at this point. So you've got an elementary school. Why are they underfunded?
You know, it's so interesting because, like, particularly with like this state, and I know there's probably others out there too. I know New York has parts like this too. Well, New York City anyway. You can think if you're from New Jersey, you can pretty much somebody names a town to you, like, oh, there's a massive Puerto Rican population there. There's a
As a Spanish person, I have my feelings.
Yeah, Lithuanian, like there, like Linden, any of those northern city towns, if you will. But they have people create their communities for safety, and for good reason.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
It's traditional. Like it's black folks, Italian folks, also. But like they've gone together into certain groups, and yes, socioeconomics is a major part of this too.
Yeah.
But like you can't force integration. That's insane.
The forcing of integration is a way of getting around the realer question where I don't have a good answer for it. So I'll just I'll put it forth where it's that in reality. So I just made a big fucking speech about how some schools are underfunded.
Yeah.
Which implies that some schools are overfunded.
Yes.
Right? So should I now take, so you've got your privileged white community, should I take your money that you built up over generations, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. We'll leave that out of it, though. Of course, it's a relevant part of the conversation. But let's leave it out. Should you take now money, and I'll just be very crass about it. Let's say it's a very well-to-do white neighborhood. They all descended from the Mayflower, you know? Is it fair to take money from those families, right, and put it into a poor district in Newark?
That's very interesting that you mentioned that because that's been a Phil Murphy policy because that's part of this was that, you know,
if that's what he was doing, then I can't say it.
Well,
nor would I necessarily agree with it.
Policy in action.
We've discussed, you know, Toms River is a predominantly white area. Toms River has had their school budget slashed, and a lot of that money has been relocated or, you know, reallocated to like Newark and Trenton and Camden. And you can make a case that it's like, oh, it's for like a race thing, but it looks a little bit more suspicious to me. It's like, oh, it's more of like a party line type thing because because those areas are red counties, Ocean County, Monmouth County, this, that, and the other thing. Monmouth, not that red, but in comparison, you have Essex County that has Newark. That's deeply blue. You have Camden, which is deeply blue. You have Trenton, that's deeply blue. And Newark was the greatest, was the biggest benefactor out of this this moving of money.
So my take on that would be, I agree with you, the essence of that. I think, though, that within that is perhaps one of the things that sticks in my craw, as it were, the ways in which we try to separate these things. And say, well, this looks, and you're right, I do agree with you, that looks like politics. Because it is. It is politics. But how do you separate politics from socioeconomic difference, you know? That's kind of what it is. It's that, in other words, and that's what I always go back to. This is why I call myself like a classical Marxist. Because when I look at it, it's that we as regular people, like the three people sitting at this table, right? And whoever's listening to this right now, that we look at it as regular people. That we're sitting here and we're like, yeah, okay, I get it. I got my racism in me. I got my judgments, you know, but really I do get that some people are just poor and some people are rich and I don't know the best way to separate the money that people have. But a politician looks at the exact same thing and they see how they can benefit from it.
Yes.
But in other words, everything's the same.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah,
it's all the same
They
thing.
just see an outcome that
Yeah.
they can brag about later so they can get into another office.
And they don't actually want, and this is my caveat to that, is that they don't want that outcome. In other words, if we're looking at this as regular, and as much as I like to shit on my fellow man, and myself on occasion, I can be a little self-deprecating. As much as I enjoy that, and I think it's fun and healthy for the soul, when I look at these things, and I think when regular people look at these things, they really are looking at it as like, no, I do get that it's a problem. Like it's I don't want for the poor black kid or the poor white kid to not get any sort of an education, to be bound to a life of, servitude in a prison or something like that. That's not what we believe in this country. I don't think that a normal human being anywhere on this planet endorses that idea. But a politician views it as a means to an end. And because of that, I think that the two outcomes that they desire are different, because your regular person does want for the poor black kid, the poor white kid, whatever, to go and have their best shot. If they blow it, then they blow it. But, it is what it is. The politician has zero interest in getting rid of the problem, because if the problem disappeared, what the fuck do you campaign on?
Well, also, too, that outcome could be anything. It could just be a desired outcome that gets them more money. Can they just flood money into a school system?
It's multifaceted. But the bottom line is that only some of us make money from the problem existing.
Yeah.
Whereas like the three of us, basically, we make money if society works okay.
Right.
If people aren't shooting each other in the street and we can travel the roads safely and what have you, then that's a good day for us.
And this can,
politicians don't gotta worry about that.
And this can all be because we are talking about a socioeconomic problem. And that's, I think, the point that I brought up to you when we were on the way to the studio, where it's if you want to have more diverse schools, then it has to be affordable to live in those areas. Like Tom's River.
Bingo.
Yes.
Tom's River is a pretty expensive place. And also there's a bit of soft bigotry of low expectations, but if you want to just assume that black people live in those lower socioeconomic stratus, then you are going to prevent them from living in these other areas. Like
they
Tom's
just like
River,
living there,
Asbury
Dan.
Park.
That's what black folks like. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
There's all this stuff where municipalities have to cater X amount of housing to low income.
Yeah.
And it's a very small amount.
And it's also a big issue too in this race as well, because they've been saying you've got to spend more money, and they've been saying affordable housing, which I'm like, are you talking about? I believe it's called Section 8 housing.
It's Section 8.
Yeah. And I was like, but you're not saying that. But then when you listen to the Republican side, now I know there's that difference, but when you hear them talking about it, it's like, no, these counties shouldn't be forced to build low economic, housing, because those counties don't really want it. Yeah. And if you're going to force them to spend money on it to overall either bring down the property values.
Alabama didn't want emancipation. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, we're going to force it upon you, and some of these counties too don't really have the money for that as well.
It's the problem does go back to that. It's not about the school system, and it's not even about the housing thing, though that of course is the biggest issue. It's where does the child live now? Yeah. But then you get to the next level of it. Where do the parents live? Mm-hmm. Where are they allowed to live? Where are they able to live? Where can they afford to live? Those issues are so systemic. And in this country, I'm sorry to say, we don't want to talk about it because we don't have a solution. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, it's also, we don't have a solution, one, because we have a state, we have a country that you can argue the economy is crumbling. Where is this money going to come from? We spend way more money. I'll rephrase this. Our money
from the poor,
is inflationary, so it's going to naturally not have any more value. And the more we keep doing this, the less it has any sort of weight. So if you're a middle class family, does not matter what your race is, you are effectively priced out of certain areas. And in terms of New Jersey, and I mentioned this to you, this is the libertarian classical liberal in me, it's not a problem if people are leaving the state. It's the market correcting itself. And eventually, yes, the state will go through some hard times. But I think that's the only real solution, is that people need to flee. The state has to repair itself if it can, and then people would come back.
And they will go to other states that are treating their people far better, like Alabama and Mississippi.
I like how you just throw Alabama in there,
I don't throw them in there. They're the greatest state in this goddamn union, and you will respect them, Dan.
I don't think many people during the COVID lockdowns were moving down to Alabama. They were moving to Florida,
Well, they should have
Tennessee,
been,
the
'cause
Carolinas.
there was no restrictions there, and that country is doing great.
Also, yeah, I mean, you want
If I
to
would have said,
you
you're
want,
all right.
you want to throw Alabama under the bus. I don't think anybody's accusing their schools of being segregated, though.
It's like mostly one color there, right? Red, Dan.
All right, there's some other shit we need to get into.
Okay.
That was
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
So there was.
my horse.
I was actually very interested in some of these other topics because we've been picking on the Democrats for a little bit. So now let's go shift over to the Republican debates. So there was a whole bunch of things. Don't really want to get into most of what they're talking about because this would be the same standard political talking points and this, that, and the other thing. But they brought up the amount of money that the Rutgers football coach and basketball coach made. And I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up because all three of them were kind of like, yeah, we want to slash the budget over at Rutgers. And they all gave kind of like different answers. John Bramnick, he wanted to, he said like, yeah, I would actually tell Rutgers that if that coach is making so-and-so amount of money, that it's too expensive and you can't hire him.
Question.
Yes.
What are they getting paid? Because I'm not familiar.
Oh, they're getting paid multiple, like $4 to $6 million, I believe, $7 maybe.
They're
A year or per?
A season, yeah.
So
Oh my
there is
God.
no, and like I
never thought I was a Republican
I don't
before.
really-
God damn.
easy baby, it tries to snake its way into you. So it's a Big Ten program. It's a whole thing. And you definitely wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's a part of the economic process of this too, because effectively, if you're a part of that program,
No,
you can
yeah,
debate
yeah.
how much Rutgers is paying out of taxpayer money and how much it's actually generating through the sports revenue.
This
and
game
all
has
that
been
stuff.
played, yeah, no pun intended,
But-
for a million years. Yeah.
Jack Chitterelli, that was his response that effectively what you were saying, Justin, where it's just like, listen, this is a part of us signing up this school, Rutgers, for Big Ten membership. So it's the price of admission, and we haven't seen the monetary uptick that we were trying to go for with this. So we need to wait it out so we can see that economic uptick, because if Rutgers were to win a Big Ten championship, then we would see a lot of money coming in. And then we had Bill Spadia, who effectively was like, I don't really care. I'm slashing $1 billion regardless. And if that comes out of his salary,
slashing that, and they can figure it out from there.
yeah, that's effectively what his philosophy was. That it's not a burning issue. I just thought it was interesting that they brought it up during the debate.
Because it was at least a different question, I guess. You know what I mean?
It's a part of all the issues that are coming out, like in New Jersey, like the Newark stuff.
I mean, on reflect, I don't know if it's necessarily the most important question, but I appreciate it being different.
I love that that's the focus of where they're at. It's like, so what do you think about the crumbling state of the New Jersey economy? Let's talk about sports for a minute.
Well, it is about
I know what you're
sports,
gonna say,
but
Jim.
it's also about how much money Rutgers is potentially wasting.
I think that my answer to that is like I know very little about it, so I'm gonna shoot from the waist here. It's kind of like almost a Republican talking point where we're just gonna like cut the budget, period.
Yeah.
Without taking into account, it's kind of like we were joking about Elon Musk before, where it's like we're just gonna like fire people, and it's like, well, okay, that's great. As an American, I don't think you could find a human being on this fucking planet, no matter what country they're from, where it's like, no, I think that my government uses all of the money correctly. I don't think there's a human being that exists like that.
As a government employee, they don't.
Yeah, there you go. So the Republicans just like latch onto that, but then they like go about this in such a haphazard way. In other words, could you find? So it's very easy to not find the person who like is about like just randomly fucking firing people and what have you. But like, at what point is like the cutting of the fat, to utilize their terminology? Where is it appropriate? How are you measuring that? What is how are you going about it? And so I look at this as one of these like phoned in, again, to criticize Elon Musk, where it's just like, oh, you're just going to like wield a chainsaw on stage because that's really fun to do and looks cool, but you're actually going to do nothing. and not deal with any of the systemic issues that actually face our country. And so now let's bring it back to the state level. And instead of talking about what the real problems are, we're going to talk about how this one, and I obviously reacted to how much that coach is being paid, or these coaches. I think that that's egregious. I also know nothing of the sport, and I do understand that you have to pay people for talent. So I put that in quotations, and I would love to make it bigger.
Because it's Rutgers.
Yeah.
Like their football team generates a lot of revenue just because football is the revenue generating sport.
Like, I didn't go to Rutgers, but I went to college across the street from Rutgers.
Yeah.
But Rutgers is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like
as many giant colleges are.
Yeah. And it's like, it is big business. Now, whether or not they can get their ass in gear or not, it's a different question.
Yeah.
But that's for a different conversation entirely. But it is wild. And this is stuff that's like, I know of Rutgers. I know it's a big sports, particularly football and stuff like that. And
being in New Jersey, we all know the name. But what I take away from that, and I'll just use that one particular example, but you could extrapolate it as far as you want. I doubt that it's going to fundamentally change the math that I've done with my argument, which is that we're talking about $4 million that somebody got paid, right? And the Republicans basically campaign in this state and on a national level, but basically in this state for sure, on the Democrats are taxing you too much, and we're going to fix that in some way. And you're going to talk to me about some dude getting paid $4 million? Let's talk about what you get paid. Let's talk about the systemic issues that face this state in terms of taxation. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're talking about billions of dollars. And the order of magnitude that separates those things is fucking night and day. So in other words, when they talk about, when the Republicans campaigning talk about that, and I so want to get caught up in it, I really do, because it is egregious to me, because $4 million or whatever the number was, it's a lot of money.
I think it's more than that because it's the football coach.
And that's fine. But it could be $10 million, it could be 20, it could be 50 million, and I fucking hope it isn't. But
it wouldn't. It's Rutgers. It's Rutgers football program.
But even if it was, that is a drop in the bucket in this state in terms of our taxation. In other words, all of the Republicans are doing is saying like, oh yeah, you don't like being taxed? Well, look over here. I've got some keys, and that's all that they're doing.
Well, I mean,
look where Rutgers Prime is.
Yeah.
And then look where, like, look at Southwest Jersey.
Yeah.
Why would they give a flying fuck?
And that's just it, because I hang out, like, as you guys know, like, I live in the south part of the state, and I love to go out of the southwest part of the state, which is very much so like mega territory. And I love hanging out there. I think those people are absolutely delightful. I don't always agree on the politics and what have you, but I love those people.
99.9% of them are fantastic.
And exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like they'll hear that shit from their candidate, or from Trump or from whoever, where they're just like, why you're getting taxed so much? Because some guy from Rutgers got paid $4 million.
I do have to step in. It was a question asked by the moderator. So they're not really stepping in and saying,
Dan, I would jump across this table. I'm so riled up right now.
I understand that, but it's important that kind of context, because while it's like, how can you justify paying these coaches this amount of money?
Yeah.
One candidate was like, well, we shouldn't. The other one was like, I'm cutting $1 billion anyway, so I don't give a shit how much you pay him, because we're going to lose that money. Yeah. And it was Sherrill, who is the favorite, who is up by a lot of percentage points in the polls. So he's going to be it. And he was the one that was like, no, it's fine.
But he's Trump anointed.
So let me clarify then what I was actually railing against, because I feel like I wasn't clear.
Yeah.
My question was not with their answers. It was with the question.
Then your beef is not with the Republican Party. It's with the moderator who asked the question.
My problem is that the moderator is the same as the Republican Party, is the same as the Democratic Party. And it doesn't matter what news organization they work for. You guys know my politics.
Just bash the media with me. Just once. Come on.
I would love to, Dan, but I'm nearly out of whiskey. Where is that bottle? I'm going to refill this.
That back.
Is it right? Oh, my goodness. I'm getting it, Dan.
He's going off. He's going off.
I'll be right back.
But it's an important mission. It's okay.
Oh.
But yeah,
Murphy.
it's like the only point I think I was trying to make is that, like, it's a very interesting question in that it is very different, but it's like New Jersey being so different across numerous lines. It's like, how does that question hit different people?
Yeah.
2 shots of whiskey.
So I actually, to tie this in, because I want to start going through, because we are running a little long, so I just wanted to quickly jump through some of the things in terms of the debates. All right, so we'll jump back to the Democrats real quick, because this is an interesting topic of discussion. May not go too long on it. Maybe we'll talk about it another time in a little bit more depth. but Steve Fulop,
Yeah.
he is the only candidate, I think, out of all of them that is in favor of essentially a retaliatory congestion tolling against New York City, because they have that going
They had
on.
their own
thing.
thing that they.
And so now everyone's like, oh no, we just got to like hammer New York and get that taken away.
Dan, can you explain, like, for folks who don't know, because I'm a little bit ignorant of this too. Could you explain real quick, because I know we're short on time, but like what that taxation thing, to the toll thing in New York, that we're going to try and retaliate.
So effectively, it's just an increase in terms of tolling going into New York if you're from New Jersey.
Right.
And
it's one way, right?
Yeah, it's one way. It's for congestion because a lot of people from New Jersey. It's because a lot of people from New Jersey, they work in New York.
Yes.
If I went into the office, I have a medical accommodation, but if I did go into the office and drove in, I usually don't drive in because it's a fucking nightmare. I would be seeing, I think it's a $9 increase in how much it is to get into Manhattan.
Holy shit.
It's severe.
And so Steve Fulop, because I said his name wrong on the last podcast, I kept saying Falup as if it's like as if it's like a Fruit Loop or something.
Like, I went with you, but you were throwing me for a little bit of a loop.
He's the only candidate that wants to do it back towards New York. And I think because everyone else, and I kind of, for the one thing, I actually kind of agree with all the other candidates where it's like, you're just going to create more of a tax. If we can't get into New York without getting charged $9 more, and then New Yorkers can't get into New Jersey without getting charged more, then they're not going to spend any money here because they're not going to come here.
Right.
Like
we'll quantify it.
And do they? This is my problem with these types of. We did a podcast about the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same problem that I have there, where it's like you're just like doing a blanket fucking thing, and you don't really understand how it's going to play out. You know, like just doing like a sales tax is like a measurable thing, but doing like if you do this, you know, a reciprocal tax, as we like to call it these days, I feel like that doesn't make any sense. And likewise, if you just allow New York to do that, well, then they're benefiting from New Jersey taxpayers without having to really contribute to the state. So you're extracting money from New Jersey.
All right. So what are the parameters? Is it people coming into like Manhattan alone? Like what about going into like say Long Island or something like that? Or
Nobody wants to go to Long Island, and you know that.
I'm just curious. Like how many people are coming from Manhattan into New Jersey?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
So take this with a grain of salt. I had to punch this up real quick because you put me on the fly. New Jersey commuters are facing a $9 toll to enter Manhattan below 60th Street due to New York City's congestion pricing plan. So I don't see anything here that would really affect Staten Island or Long Island or anything that really, if you were going up to
like one or two
Harlem.
bridges.
The major bridges.
The major bridges,
So that's an interesting thing. That's something that they've been going back and forth on.
The people that come here from New York.
If you live in New York, then you don't come to New Jersey.
You come to New Jersey.
The summer house on the shore.
If you,
that's fair. Yeah. But that's not. Is that really like? Is that?
But they're mostly from Staten Island.
I was going to say they're from like Staten Island. They're from the boroughs. Yeah. Because if you can afford, and I'm completely fucking speculating right now, but if you can afford to live in the part of Manhattan where this, like in theory, would affect you, then first of all, you're not fucking driving anywhere. Because to own anything or even to rent anything there, you're a multimillionaire so many times over. So the people who are getting places over in like our beach communities, essentially, because they want to like go down the shore for the summer, those people are like a few times millionaires and they're not living anywhere near Manhattan. So it's really just affecting New Jerseyans who have to cross the bridge because they go there to work. And they make good money.
It's a very much a mostly one-way street.
Yeah.
It is a one-way street, but if we do that, if we do have our own congestion
if we had the
pricing,
retaliatory, would that look more?
What would that look like? And then will they increase their congestion pricing? What will they?
Man.
And then once again, this is why I just wish that I could be a political advisor. This is why they're doing it wrong, because it's all about the laws of retaliation, right? Lex talionis. What you do is that they pass their taxes, and then we blow up the bridge.
Effectively.
Right? We blow up just one bridge, or we damage it. We damage it. We damage it enough that it can't be used, but you can repair it.
We bridged
and
it.
now, exactly. You know, and then New York has got to step
Jersey,
back and be
folks.
like, "Whoa, maybe we'll dial back the taxes a little bit." And we're like, "You better, Because there's another bridge, and we're looking at that one.
No one knew about Fort Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
I don't know. Like, it's such a weird thing. It seems like a moot point to me. Like, for me.
Well, it doesn't
Me,
affect
as a
us 'cause we
person
don't
that does
commute
not have to go into Manhattan, it's kind of like, yeah, that seems ridiculous and New York, but I've had that relationship my entire life.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not paying it. I'm not going there.
Yeah. And also, if we were to go
If
there,
I do, I'd take...
we're taking the train.
Yeah.
We're taking the train that for the longest time didn't work. By the way, we probably should acknowledge that the engineer strike actually ended because we mentioned that and it was still ongoing.
Yeah,
at
no,
the point.
it actually didn't last that
Yeah,
particularly long.
It didn't last that long. So, to the benefit, I think, of Democrats, it won't be something that hangs over their heads in the general election because people will have forgotten that it even happened by that time.
It's already forgotten,
Yeah.
as it is every time that comes up.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things that I just wanted to touch upon before we log off here. So I'll skip Josh Gottheimer and his feud with Fulop and frickin'
Boring.
and Baraka because it's just like whatever. I wanted to comment on Steve Sweeney real quick.
Okay,
Because
please.
Steve Sweeney is such an interesting case because I've never heard a man speak about Trump so much that in terms of like being like like Trump's a criminal, this, that, and the other thing, and yet talk like him. Because every time he got an answer, every time it was like his turn to talk, he was just like, well, nobody knows more about bridges than me.
Oh, he was doing a Trump thing.
He was doing a Trump thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
The Trump thing works, man. I mean, like, we all want to sit here and shit on it, but the man's the president. You know, like, it does work.
Sweeney
It shouldn't work, but it does.
Sweeney seemed to
The
me
modus
like,
operandi does.
Yeah, exactly.
he was like a weird amalgamation of Biden and Trump, where it's like he had like Trump's like bravado, his like braggadocious nature. Like he was just like, oh, I could do.
Braggadocious. Oh, my God. Great.
Sweeney was advertising heavily almost 8 months before anybody else sent out their first ads.
Yeah, he was trying to get those funds.
He was
Funny, yeah.
when all the ads were about the presidential election. Steve Sweeney was ads for this.
That's what it is, yeah. And this is why I don't vote.
And then also at the same time, the thing that ties him into Joe Biden, and then we can drop Steve Sweeney, is that it just seemed like every time he was about to make a point, he would forget his point,
Yes.
and then just say his first point again, and then his time would be up.
Dan, that happens to me when I don't care about the argument that I'm having to.
Well, he's running for governor. He should
I
care.
stand by what I said, and I know what I said.
All right, let's close out. I had so in terms of the actual Democrat debate, no one actually really stood out to me. If anyone stood out to me in any sort of like, just objectively, they did a good job speaking and delivering their message well, then it was Ross Baraka, and it was not even particularly
Well,
close.
he's a good speaker.
Yeah, it's
He's
just
a good communicator.
I just assume that he's going to win because he's the only name that I hear anybody talk about.
the issue with that though is one, it's a red county, and then two, he is down by a good deal to Mikie Sherrill
told
in
me
the
that.
polling.
Yeah.
Now, we said this in the last time we did one of these. Polling's not necessarily like, fact and all that stuff, especially.
Democratic Party has a
Post-Trump.
real identity issue right now. That
You know
is-
what we should do? Instead of trying to speculate about who's going to win, because I feel like the one thing that we always agree on when we have these things, and I don't just mean on the podcast, but I mean
in life.
Yeah.
that we always agree that no one cares, right? So you know what we should like place our like gentlemen's bets on, like some drink bets. What the
I got a
voter?
whiteboard we can
I would love that right there.
Yeah.
We should we should make bets on the voter turnout.
Oh, well, we're
I'm
almost
gonna
out of time.
say-
Next time we do one of these and you join us, Pedro, we'll talk voter turnout
Put it up on the board.
because it's actually expected to be a pretty low voter
It's going to be very
turnout.
low. It's going to be
I'm
quite low.
shocked by that, Dan. I am shocked.
This is my shocked face.
I am shocked. And the people can see it. And they know it when they look in my heart.
So, wrap up. I pretty much think that Ross Baraka won that debate. I don't think he did a good enough job to actually get himself any sort of traction to overtake Mikie Sherrill. In the Republican side, we know that it's Jack Ciattarelli, and Jack Ciattarelli just needed to shit himself on stage for either one of them to actually
And
overtake
he
him.
managed to pinch it.
And it did not actually happen. And I didn't mention this on the last one, so I want to say this before we wrap up. Bill Spadia, I don't understand because I think it was the first Republican debate, he committed political suicide. Oh, wait, am I not allowed to say that?
No.
De-aliving? Unaliving?
Political unaliving.
Committed political unaliving.
When he said on the debate stage that he would only serve one term, that he was like, I'm only going to serve one term as governor of New Jersey for the Republican Party. And I'm like, if I was a Republican, you have now lost my vote because I do not want to do this shit again with a fresh set of candidates in 4 years. I would like the advantage of the incumbent. And he was like, nah. I'm not going to do that.
No.
Spady is.
He never meant it. So
I mean, by his nature of what he is he makes rash and big decisions like that.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks he's getting points by doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
But I think that's his
like idea. The issue though with that is the type of Republican that Bill Spady already, that's already his base. They don't need to hear that because they were going to vote for you anyway, and that's who that appeals to. If you want to get the more center-right kind of country club Republican, you got to tell them I'm gonna serve
country club Republican. I know what you mean.
Right.
I know what you mean.
You got to tell them I'm going to serve 8 years.
No.
That I'm gonna win, and I'm going to give you 4
I'm gonna
more
hold
years.
it down.
I'm going to hold it down, and we're going to have 8 years of Republican fucking governorship. And when you do that in the first debate, I made this joke to you, Justin, that if
Nobody gets rights.
if I were the campaign manager, I would have been sprinting onto the stage and grabbing the mic. I would have been like, nope.
Well, it's also like Spady has been his worst enemy, essentially, because everything he's said in the past X amount of years is recorded in media, raising like the tolls like by dollars amounts.
Yeah.
He's living his best life.
So I would like to close this by making fun of John Bramnick.
Oh, please.
So when
I'm a comedian.
When we recorded the first podcast, Justin, you had actually told me that he was a comedian. I did not know this. I knew nothing of this. And then in that final debate, I guess he just understood that it was unwinnable, and he just fucking leaned into it. It was just like, well, when I announced my my candidacy in a comedy club, I was just like, are you just really fucking doing this right now? And the entire debate, he was just trying to make jokes the entire time. I didn't get the endorsement for Donald Trump. I waited into the wee hours of the night. Never got the call. I know my impressions.
All right, so
It's rare that I say I can't even, but
I will provide a photo. Like all his print media, at least I live and operate in Ocean County, so there's a lot of his print media, and every one of them is, by day, I fight for the taxpayer. By night, I'm a stand-up comedian. And it's him doing, like, the scene, Leonardo DiCaprio with, like, the martini scene from the Great Gatsby.
and it doesn't play well.
No, it doesn't.
Well, also the issue, too, is what would sink John Bramnick. Now, it's not a bad strategy in New Jersey. However, Trump is still, whatever you think about the guy, he's incredibly popular with Republicans.
Yeah.
He's like a 91% favorability with Republicans.
In this state,
It's just in general.
I feel like a lot of Republicans don't like him. I don't want to get.
Well, that's the 9%.
Sorry, whatever. I'm not gonna get.
Listen, I wouldn't say he's, like, full. I do hear some dissent post the whole terror thing.
I know a lot of Republicans. don't like him.
But the issue is you're running in a Republican primary.
Yeah.
And you are now going up there as the antithesis of the president and most popular Republican in the party right now.
Well, the bottom line is that the Republican Party has split itself.
It is, but the issue is the never Trumper base is not powerful right now. So
I agree. It's not.
your ability to win a primary a year after him winning, I don't care what he's done so far. He's still popular among that base. We can talk about the general election when we get closer to it. But if you're going to try and get the nomination for that party, you can't be up there and just try to like meekly tiptoe around the fact that you're not really on board with Trump, but also like, I'll play golf with him. It's like, you have to.
Well, that's a.
There is something here. Like when Christie got into office, New Jersey Republicans love this Goomba, whatever, strongman talk guy. It's very popular here in New Jersey.
New Jersey
They
is like a
love
strong
it.
man.
They
A lot
eat
of
it
Americans do. A lot of Americans do. I think that when we critique even other countries, we look at like Russia and Putin. People like strong men. We act like we don't, but we do.
No, and it was so before Christie got fully embarrassed, damn near out of.
Yeah. But that was based off his failures.
No, his failures.
If
But
you
in his
deliver-
before that,
Yeah.
when he did like the Call the Governor thing on the radio every week and stuff like that, that's a lot of people loved him for shit because he was just like, I'm a straight talker.
Yeah.
I'm a straight talker.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
attractive to a lot.
yeah,
of people.
it's attractive to a lot of people, and it's actually very interesting because I was almost about to forget that this Republican debate was really, really weirdly complimentary to Chris
Which is
Christie.
insane to me.
Which is insane because he's not popular. He's not popular in the state. He's not popular among
It
Republicans.
goes to show you that these people do not know how to read the room.
Yeah.
And mainstream media does not know how to read the room. What I generally take in from people, generally and genuinely, is that people are disenfranchised with the political apparatus. I certainly know that I am. I don't have any interest in any of these fucking people. They have nothing to do with me or with anything that I care about, you know?
If we weren't having these conversations, I wouldn't give a shit.
Exactly.
And I mean that fully.
If you're going to sit here and actually lower my taxes, then great. Like I'll speak kindly of you a little bit. But like that's as good as you're going to get from me because you do nothing to further my life. Everything that improves upon my life or the life of people that I care about, you guys included, is like the shit that we do for ourselves. And yes, the government absolutely paves the roads and does these things. These are the bare minimums for the amount of
Well, we would
taxes that
hope.
we all pay.
We would hope.
Yeah, for the amount of money that is put forth, and yes, you should fucking pave the road. And I shouldn't pat you on the back for that. You didn't do a good job. You did a shitty job, and we're not rioting because it's not worth it to us because we are doing things to make our own lives function.
The amount of communities I've seen that have had to fill their own potholes,
Yeah.
in my town at least.
It's fucking absurd.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But that's the nature. Fuck all these people. And that's why,
That was pretty much what Justin and I ended on in the first
I love that. I
podcast.
love that I got to where you guys were. And I love that you guys got to where I've always been.
Yeah. First,
You're not wrong.
have you talked to me about government at all?
Can we talk about Karl Marx?
We literally ended our first podcast and I'm like, New Jersey's absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
It's going to be completely fucked for forever. It's been fucked for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's,
And this
The whole
is like,
country's going the same way.
and like, I know, like, listen, I am very aware that like I should care, but I'm so beaten down I'm hanging on by a fucking thread. I truly am. I don't think anybody's going to fix anything.
I choose not to care because so it's like I know that you chose your wording because it's fun. I just choose not to care because it's fucking stupid. It's just fucking stupid. You get my goddamn money, $365. You think I'm gonna waste a fucking Tuesday sitting in a library that I would never go to because I also don't believe in reading. Damn.
well, you can't vote in the primary because none of us are registered Republicans or Democrats. So I figure, like, despite the fact that we're all so despondent with this race, let's do another one when the results are in for the primaries. And hey, maybe we'll do what we did with the presidential election.
Oh, Dan's making love to the cameras. This is what we do now.
He loves it.
Look at those baby blues. But yeah, maybe we'll do a live stream. We'll have to figure out.
I think we should at least try it again.
Yeah.
If we do that, I'm going to drink twice as much as I did tonight. And I actually drank a fair amount of whiskey. It's not a lie. Thank you for bringing this, by the way. Really. And I drank a lot before we even got here.
All right. So, yeah, maybe we'll get that done. And, yeah, so for all of you that are registered Democrats and Republicans that are going to vote on primary day or early vote or whatever, good luck.
Yeah.
We're all not counting on you.
No.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Cheers to that.